For years, I was suffocating because I refused to let go of people and things that drained me. I didn't think it would change like this. My name is Aaliyah Zealous. I am a self-published author, a self-care junkie, and I'm a woman coming into my own. I'm learning how to transition out of being a timid, anxious, self-sacrificing individual to a bold and unapologetic young woman, finally letting myself feel free enough to live authentically and fearlessly, out loud and for myself. I always wanted to be a badass. In my head, I was a boss, the HBIC. I knew what I wanted and where I wanted to go, and I had the confidence to say it. But in my real life, or shall I say my current reality, I was not quite that. I spent majority of my life very timid of people, places, and experiences. And I'm going to be brutally honest. A lot of that came from negative experiences from people who were supposed to be my friends or have my best interest at heart. And parents who instilled a lot of fear about a lot of things growing up. And God, I hated that for me. Through a series of unfortunate events, I learned to overcompensate in my relationships because I wanted to be seen as a dutiful person in whatever role that I played in that person's life. Whether that was me being a good daughter, me being a good friend, or me being a good student. I often put other people's needs and comfortability before my own because I thought it was the noble thing to do. I completely ignored being my most authentic self in a lot of meaningful situations out of fear of being rejected or made fun of for who I am, and just not feeling confident enough. If you grew up anyway like I did, it often felt like I had to prove my life choices to authority figures in my life to prove that they were valid or important enough for me to make them. And if I couldn't defend them, or I got the sense from my parental figures that my reasoning was insignificant and unimportant, then to me that meant that my choices were stupid and invalid. But I'm currently entering a favored stage of my life, a stage that I've been enjoying a lot called fuck that. You know, I can't take full credit of this turning point as if I'm having this revelation on my own. Sometimes you just get to a point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I was sick and freaking tired. I've been decluttering a lot. My space, my relationships, and my mind, from things, ideas, and ties that drain me and weigh me down mentally and emotionally and stop me from moving forward with my life. Detaching my identity from things, people, and ideas and activities that no longer accurately represent who I am in my current life. I think it's so important to go through a deep detox every once in a while throughout your life because you realize how much energy and mental and emotional resources that have been going into other things that haven't been feeding you back and have only been taking up space and giving you the illusion that you're being fed. I eventually started to feel like I didn't have the capacity to take on new ventures in my life because I was so mentally and emotionally fatigued from these other things. And this is how I learned the brutal lesson that decluttering, and I mean thoroughly letting go of things, people, and ideologies that no longer nourish you, is an essential step in becoming a better version of you. And for me, it's been a huge relief. I'm not gonna lie, it's been strange and a little scary at first, but a huge relief nonetheless. I think a lot of us fear letting go because there are so many things that we've accepted in our lives for so long and that we have tended to for so long that now there's a designated space within us for it.
I haven't slept in 7 years, been resting my
We're used to the routine that it takes to maintain it, it's familiar, and we've already let it take root. And you can ask any gardener. Taking something out at the root is a lot more work than just pretending it isn't there. And I know for me, when I actually sat and thought about what was it that was keeping me from getting rid of what I needed to get rid of and what I wanted to get rid of, it was because I knew that once I did, there would be this empty space where the familiar thing used to occupy. And I feared that empty space, because it made me go into anxious overdrive over what will I get to fill this empty space and how long I would have to sit with this empty space before it becomes filled again. This is such a stupid analogy, but it is kind of like having a broken compass. And even though you know it's broken and it won't point you in the right direction, you have a hard time letting it go because the illusion of having something that will point you in the right direction is much more comforting than not having that thing at all. And if you didn't have that broken compass at all, then you definitely feel lost and not know where to go. Even though you know it's broken. But I knew deep down that I no longer wanted to hold on to things and people just to hold on to them anymore. And I'm over that fear of that empty space.
I just got off the phone with the girl.
At first, when you remove something that has taken up so much space in your life, that empty space can feel hella weird and hella uncomfortable. And at times, it can often feel like something is wrong. Like that empty feeling is signifying that something isn't right. When in actuality, that empty space isn't an indication that something is wrong. It's just an indication that something has been taking up so much mental, emotional, and sometimes spiritual space in our lives that now without it, we have all this extra energy, attention, and space that we don't necessarily know what to do with yet and know where to direct it. It's like when you've been working on autopilot for so long, or you've been so invested in a project that now that it's the weekend or you're on vacation, you kind of feel restless and you don't really know what to do with your time or how to relax. I think another aspect of this is that when something has been rooted within us for so long, we kind of mistake it for being a part of who we are and a part of what makes up our identity. And if we let these things or these behaviors or these people go, then we'll no longer be who we thought ourselves to be. And that can be scary. And I'm telling on myself here, but for example, if you were the type of friend who always showed up for people and always gave so much of yourself, gave everything you had, even if it was the last of what you had, most likely you've attached an identity to that behavior, maybe thinking that that behavior makes you a generous and caring person. There may even be some pride in this identity, even if that identity has been, or this behavior has been draining you for years. And when you get to a point where you're ready to stop and release this behavior for the betterment of yourself, this can cause some heavy feelings because now, along with the behavior, now your belief about yourself is going to be challenged of whether you still believe yourself to be a generous and kind person, even if you're no longer doing these overcompensating and draining behaviors. Or maybe you've been doing a hobby for so long that used to bring you joy, but for years you've only been doing it now because that's what your family and your friends know you for. And in some way, it's now intertwined with your identity. You could think, without this hobby, who am I? But you know the best thing to do is to put away the burden of trying to maintain the person that you used to be in exchange for having the space and the freedom to find something that actually brings you joy. I think one of the most powerful things that I've been learning about being brave and letting go of relationships and things and activities that drain me or don't contribute to my growth anymore is learning the part that I've played in keeping those things around. I've been realizing that on some level, these things, people, and activities that I've been keeping in my life for so long, I allowed because I had a codependent attachment to them. Although I felt drained by them, on some level they validated an identity that I wanted to hang on to so bad that I was willing to let these things drain me in exchange for this validation. I had to learn how to be honest with myself and others about my mental and emotional capacity and not sugarcoat my words and my feelings just to make other people feel comfortable and accepted by me. And allowing other people's burdens and emotions to occupy so much of my space. I had to get honest and declare to myself that I'm not extra space for other people to use. My emotional clarity is not extra space for other people's emotional baggage. My flow of income is not extra money for other people to use at their convenience. Other people's emotions, their desires, and even their traumas are not more important than mine. And it's not my responsibility to make them better or to accommodate for all of their emotional, mental, or physical needs just because they want it and it'll make their burdens easier. No one's entitled to my space to be used as extra storage for them, and it does not make me more of a noble or morally correct or helpful person to give up my space and resources for other people to use. And honestly, I feel like that's one of the reasons why I haven't been as abundant as I'd like to be, emotionally, mentally, physically, and financially. Because every bit of resource that I get, I quickly give away to other people because I'm not in immediate need of it. So I convinced myself into thinking that since I'm not in immediate need of it, then it could be better utilized elsewhere, instead of collecting it and using it to create something better for myself. I think a part of living unapologetically is being okay with the different facets of yourself that you will come into throughout different periods of your life. I think we all, and I know for sure that I do, we get stuck in these versions and ideas of our lives that we planned out for ourselves growing up. They become deeply ingrained in who we are and who we see ourselves becoming. Don't get me wrong, I'm the queen of planning out my life. But I do think that something happens when we try to stick so linearly to the versions of ourselves that we planned out for ourselves growing up. I think we take away the growth part, because as actualized and fulfilled and enlightened we envision ourselves to be in the future, we're still creating this future self based on our present self that doesn't actually have all the knowledge or experiences to be the version of ourselves we envisioned. Stay with me here. So we're trying to bring that version of ourselves into fruition based on the current knowledge that we have and what we think it's supposed to look like. Doing that is still a really good practice. However, I think that when we stick to it so heavily, we completely ignore and don't leave room for the organic lessons and surprises that life has in store for us that can lead us to a greater path than we ever could imagine, and that brings us more fulfillment than we ever thought we could feel. Because we cling so heavily to these ideas of ourselves and make them part of our identity, it can be hard and downright terrifying when life calls you in a different direction, or takes you on a detour to a career that people don't know you for. Engaging in relationships with people who have a deeper understanding of the person you haven't become yet, and taking on ideologies that only our future selves will understand and know how to apply. For me, bravery has been a lot less about being brave against outside forces and people, and more about being brave against the fear of myself and all of the versions I could be, but are too afraid to be out of fear and conditioning. And this is where I am. I'm learning to be brave and realizing the part I played in my own shortcomings, not being afraid to let my life shift in a different direction than what I thought it would, and sitting with these empty spaces, even though they feel uncertain, and allowing them to stay clear until something I actually enjoy, something that's nourishing and brings me fulfillment, comes to take a seat and renew my life. I've been clearing out my clothes, my calendar, restructuring my habits, and having hard conversations with myself and with other people to release everything that no longer resonates with my growth and the trajectory of my life. And I'm proud of that. It's the most badass I've ever felt. And I'm glad that this badassery feels natural, sustainable, and for my greatest good. I want you to declare in the comments one thing that has been draining you that you're no longer allowing to drain you anymore, and you're letting it go here and now. Thank you so much for joining me for the Living Unapologetically Diaries, Episode 1. I'm so thankful for your presence. I enjoyed having you here, and I can't wait to hang out with you in the next one.